Chris here with another fresh tip for you all. In this video, we're going to continue our look at the Satan Shard of the Void Dragon for the Necrons in Warhammer 40,000. This video, we're going to work on this little, robot dude that hangs off the Void Dragon's back. He's been painted in sub-assembly, so he's separate from the main body, which was separated from the base. And I'm going to use Silly Putty here to mask off all his little doodads and his arms. And it looks like I'm applying quite a bit of pressure, but it's really, I'm not. It's just to make sure that it adheres to the surface and everything like that. I'm only looking to separate the carapace from the rest of the spinal detail and all of that, because we're going to get into some airbrushing in this one really quickly here. And here I just, basically use some putty to cordon off the spinal area in between the plates. And other than that, that is ready to go. I'm not too concerned if it doesn't capture all of the bottom portion, because we're concentrating most of this color at the top. We're going to use a Renegade Chrome from Badger, spraying at around 20 psi, and we're using Canaptic, Armor Shade. Is it Canaptic? Cryptek Armor Shade. I don't even remember what it's called. And we're spraying this at around 20 psi, and we're just basically concentrating most of the pressure at the high point of the carapace, and then of course I come back once it's dry and it's just deepen the color up just a little bit more. I want it nice and dark up at the central point of the carapace plate. Now, one thing I didn't show in the painting process is that I also use Moonstone Glow. I've shown it in previous videos, highlighting the carapace when I use this color to get this really dark, brassy type of coppery, bronzy type color. Moonstone Glow from Scale 75, I use that to highlight this. Basically just a simple edging just around the perimeter, but I don't bother showing it in this video, but I've shown it in previous videos on the Necrons. Titanium White is next, and this is for the orbs of the head, and there's a little orb in the body as well. So with this color, really just the dampness of the brush, just to thin the color down ever so slightly. It's really not that necessary, as golden high flow colors are well pigmented and are very thin, because they're designed for markers, brushes, and airbrushes and things of that nature. So they flow really nicely, but they are thinner colors, so more than one coat is necessary, and I believe this is 2.5 type coats, I believe. Fluorescent Pink is next. This is good golden high flow paint line, and we've been using this for all these Necrons. I'm sure you guys are probably sick to death of me using this color on these Necrons, but I do enjoy it because I do like this glowy type of look that the Necrons have with contrast with the chrome. More than one coat will be applied, so the orb of the eyeball, as well as the that little orb inside the chest, or whatever detail that is, I don't know what it is, but 2 coats are down, gives you a nice solid color. It's really bright. We're going to throw a little bit more onto the palette, and with a little bit of white, kind of going for a 1-to-1 mix ratio, and we are going to begin highlighting. Now, with the orb itself, I basically begin applying the color about 3/4 of the surface, just really like a millimeter outside from that perimeter of like the clasp that's holding that orb, and same thing with the orb inside the chest as well. It's about 3/4 of that detail where this highlight color, because it's thinner as well, you can treat it like a glaze, so that if you apply it more than once, it really starts to build up the color. We add another drop of Titanium White and use that as our highlight color, and again I do begin laying this down about halfway across the detail itself, and because this again is thinner, I can apply multiple coats and build that color up. You can see here I'm not laying it down in a very kind of really kind of a smooth fashion. I'm really kind of just scrubbing it around, and that's because I'm looking for that unevenness. I don't want it to be like this perfect orby type shape. I want a bit to have that bit of a cloudiness to it, because maybe this thing's old. Maybe it's like the Void Dragon's caretaker. I don't know what this detail is supposed to be. I have no idea. I have no idea what to call it. That's why this video is just called the backpack. Anywho, we add more white, and we're applying it about 1/4 of the way around the detail. So on the eyeball itself, it's really just towards the front. You can see I apply little dots here and there, just to again to break up that surface, going for this kind of like cloudy type of look on the eyeball. It's it's very subtle, and it's really quite small essentially, because again, and it's also behind his head, so not a lot of people are going to see this detail unless you're really looking for it. Quinacridone Magenta is next. This is Golden High Flow. This is an opaque color. This is not a transparency. and we're thinning it down with just the dampness of the brush. I don't think I used fluid, do I? I might have added a bit of fluid to this, and I'm just going to build this towards the outer edges of the eyeball detail. But as I apply it over a majority of the eyeball, you can see I just simply use my finger to wipe it away. And with this, again, I'm not applying it so that, it's very, very smooth. Again, if it's a little darker in some points, that's fine, because that adds to that unevenness, which I'm perfectly okay with. And once it's dry, oh man, it makes that fluorescent pink just pop, as it gives you those deeper tones, and it stays within magenta. So you can see here the end of the tail where it meets up with the rest of the detail on the base. Is quite flat, and it's got paint on it. So I'm going to use my X-Acto blade to clear off where this glue point is, and also do it for the torso. And here I'm simply scoring these details. Now, I don't use crazy glue or super glue to glue parts together, especially when I've done them in sub-assemblies, especially plastic kits, because the best glue for styrene plastic is the plastic cement. So whatever plastic cement is your choice. I use Model Master from Testers. It's very comparable to Citadel's. They're all basically similar products. And really quickly, I just apply it on that tab that goes into the back, and then so the tail meets up, and it meets up perfectly, and everything is good. Like, this model was really fantastic in doing in sub-assemblies. I don't know if I've commented this on this, but doing this guy in sub-assemblies was really quite easy. We're going to use some Liquitex magenta here, quinacridone magenta, and we are basically going to just use this to tint that surface. So I had laid water down initially, so that when I lay the ink down, it doesn't dry right away, and it does prevent a bit of tide marks. I could also use the medium as well, and if that's the kind of thing you want to do, if you're really, really concerned about tide marks. I'm not terribly concerned about it, but because again, I'm going to apply multiple layers here. And again, I did the same thing. I laid a little bit of water down just to dampness of the brush, just on the surface, and then applied the ink, and then begin moving it around here. And I'm just applying it so it's kind of uneven. I considered doing this with the airbrush, but I had shown this previously. Again, this is consistent with how I've done the Necrons in the past. So if you've watched those videos, you'll be very familiar with how I'm going about this whole process. Once that first layer is dry, I'm simply coming in with a bit more magenta, just to build some of the color up and some of the points, basically building up towards the central core and the inner portion of the blade, leaving the cutting edges, as it were, untouched, and kind of cutty like edge. I don't know. Here you can see we're just simply laying more color down, and of course when I lay this second layer down, though, I don't pre-wet the area, because just the possibility of re-wetting what you had previously done. You can see this little tide mark there. I'm not too concerned about it. Big whoop. Prussian blue hue is next from Liquitex ink, and a very generous amount of water, and I take just a little bit of the Prussian blue, and then here I simply begin working this again in this kind of somewhat scrubby type, stippling type of action. And all I'm looking for is just interesting little buildup of color in areas. And if it's a little too intense, then I simply come in with a damp brush and pull it and take it away, and just move the color around, and until I'm happy with how it all kind of blends or meshes together. And essentially it's as simple as that. And again, because of the two tones, such a nice rich blue and that magenta, they create this really interesting purple hue where you get these magenta and blues where they're separate, and that gives some visual interest as well. No actual blending occurs in this process. It's your eyeball that sees those perceived colors. Here I'm coming back in with some more Prussian blue once the first layer has dried, and I'm just building it up into some areas where I wanted it to build up towards the base of where these blades meet up, and that is really it. It's just an aesthetic choice, but otherwise, as long as you're deliberate and you're not laying too much color down, you should be just fine in doing this kind of thing. And this is a lot of fun, and again, I've done videos on how this was done before in the past. Amethyst Alchemy from Scale 75 is next. I like using this color because it's nice and bright, and it's got that nice little purple hue to it as well. And I'm doing the back edges of the blade detail of this tail. And with this, it's basically just pretty straightforward, just a nice little edging here and there. And I really don't bother picking out the little runes, and I don't bother doing a glow in the runes either, as there's already quite a bit of glow on this model. White Alchemy from Scale 75 is next. We're going to slap a little bit onto our palette. And again, we're going to do the cutting edges or the forward edges of the detail. So that's the inner edge and then the outer cutting surface around the perimeter of that. And then, of course, the edge where the blade and the, what's it, like the fuller, I guess, or whatever it is, that edge will get a little highlight as well. And as you can see, when we do our edging, we are using the side of the brush essentially. And, you know, here I'm just using the very tip of the brush. Now, these colors are quite thin, so as long as you have a nice steady hand, you can simply just repeat your brush stroke on a surface and slowly build up that color. But again, when you can slowly build up the color like that, it does afford you the ability to be, you know, create a slight transition in there, so you don't have just one abrupt line running through the detail. Screamer Pink is next from Citadel, and this is for that power line that's running from the main torso of the backpack to the end of the tail, which ends abruptly for some reason. I don't know why. I don't know why that detail doesn't persist through the entire tail, but whatever. We are going to base coat this, and you can see it's pretty straightforward. Now we're trying to be very, very careful, and I don't show the rest of it going up into the body like that because, you know, just the camera wouldn't capture that. It was awkward angles, and it just wouldn't be that interesting. We're going to use Screamer Pink and Emperor's Children. We're going to mix this in roughly a 1-to-1. Now, we could have probably go more like a 2-to-1 if we really wanted to build up a gradient. And if you want to create a nice little gradient and blend on this surface, by all means, go for it. But here, I'm just quickly working my way through, and I'm painting this in a similar fashion in what I had done with the Royal Warden doing his power cabling, where basically we have this kind of dim magenta type tone running up the cabling. And I'm just painting each of the little segments. They get closer together towards the base, and they get more separated, just kind of going for a bit of like a pulsing. More Emperor's Children is added, so it's probably closer to 1 Screamer Pink to 2 Emperor's Children. And then I begin highlighting each of those little segments that I previously done. And you can see here that it's kind of a bit awkward, and I don't quite show every brush stroke that I applied to this surface. And I'm also doing the other side as well, just because, you know, you got to essentially, right, when you're painting these things. And we worked this pretty much halfway up that detail, and you can already see the effect is starting to take place. So we're going to grab some more Emperor's Children. We're going to slap this onto the palette all on its lonesome, just the dampness of the brush to thin it out. And we are going to continue highlighting each of these. Now, with this highlight, I'm pushing more of the color towards the center point of, or the forward edge of the tube itself. So I'm not going all the way around that surface, as it were, pushing this color. It's more just a point on each of those little doodads or little segments. I don't know. I made up the segment. I made up that detail on there. And, you know, you can paint it as a transition of color there, or just a simple highlight, whatever you want. We're adding titanium white to this, giving us approximately a 2-to-1 or even a 1-to-1. It's probably close to a 1-to-1, but either way, we're just adding some white into this, and we are basically going to, again, continue working our way around. Now with this, it's only going to go maybe a third or maybe even a quarter of the way up, and get dimmer as it goes up the line. Again, this is going for a bit of a pulsing effect kind of thing going on with that detail. You know, I did it on the other Necrons and these cables and stuff like that. I have no idea why this would be there, why it's pulsing, but I thought it looked cool. Again, we got this lightning flying all over the place, and it's an aesthetics choice, and it's, you know, the whole point is to have fun with all this, and I think this was a lot of fun to do. And yeah, so that's it for the backpack tail thing. I don't know what it's called. If anybody knows, leave a comment down below what this guy is called. Next video, we will work on the spear tip. Big thank you to all my patrons. Without their support, these videos would not be possible. If you're considering Patreon support, click the link in the description below, and you'll be taken off to a magical website called Patreon, where there are varying tiers of support, and a huge thank you to everybody who does. Take care of those brushes, and they will take care of you.